And welcome back. Today we're going to look at the Compositor and how we can use it to make the scene, the rendered scene, look better. We're going to, first of all, we're going to open up the Compositor itself. It's just another tab in here. It's called Compositor. So you have your scene with your rocks. We're going to need to render it out first. But before we do that, what I'd like you to do is to add a Hdri texture to the scene. Well, you can if you want. It's up to you, of course. Let's add an Hdri texture to my scene. I downloaded an Hdri texture from Polyhaven. Polyhaven, you can get some CC0 materials. They have a lot of HDRI images. So something that fits the aesthetic, I suppose. Just get one of these HDRIs and we'll use that in the scene. I'm going to select one I've already downloaded. Change it to rendered view. And we're going to open this. And just select, it doesn't really matter. I've also added a sun to my scene, like a sun. Oh, that's actually kind of a neat scene. So this will lock the camera to the view and pick a location that looks really cool. Something like that. I'm not going to go over in this particular tutorial about how to scatter objects, but a shortcut for making grass, or at least making grass texture that looks remotely believable on a surface, can be done quickly. We're going to go to Polyhaven and we're going to download a texture. So click on Polyhaven, download a texture, and we'd like to get a texture that would fit the environment. So either terrain, something that's river rocks or mud leaves. That looks a little swampy. It's not too bad. Looking for something that's a bit more like rocky and grassy. Of course, your taste might vary, of course. Not gonna let me open this one. Okay, so grass path looks like it might work well. We're going to download this. Make sure you name your folder so you can remember these are CC0s. It helps for future efforts. And now in Blender, we have our background. We're going to subdivide this surface here. So click on tab and then W, subdivide, 10, and then do it again. Yeah, 10 again should be fine. You want to be careful you don't do too many subdivisions. The image is already, the plane is already UV unwrapped because it was a primitive. All primitives in Blender are UV unwrapped. So if we went to open up a second tab and went to the UV editor and selected the plane and then pressed tab, you can see that subdividing the plane is actually allowed us to keep the UV mapping for this particular plane as well intact. So all we need to do now is apply the textures. So we're going to go back into the shader editor. Going to create a new material. It's already got a material. Okay, so we're just going to call this ground. And we're going to check on our download. Looks like it's done. I'm going to go into my assets, materials, CC0 mats, and that was grass path 2. extract. I'll give you a blend file with this one too. It's kind of cool. We're going to go in here, textures, and then we're going to use the the diffuse color and the normal map. It's an EXR. Why is it an EXR? Huh. Okay. Yeah, and we're going to use the displacement map. So you can drag things directly into Blender, into the material, into the shader editor, which helps a lot with finding and securing your different textures. So Shift T, Control T, excuse me. Mapping. We're just going to create a simple map for displacing this texture and making it look good. So grass path diffuse goes into base color. Since it's ground, I'm going to change the roughness to 100, of course. And I'm going to look at the ground here. Yeah, that's all right. That'll do probably really well. The grass will look a little strange. If you put like scattered grass on top of this, it'll look amazing. So you want to make sure that the normal is set to non-color. We're going to use that one last. Displacement, we're going to use for displacement. So for the texture, we need to go down here, past the principal BSDF, change this to displacement bump only, or displacement and bump. We're going to add in a displacement node. And we're going to plug the color into the height value, and then we're going to plug displacement into displacement. And you're going to have stuff go crazy, which is fine. And just get a good look at it. And we're going to change the mid-level to 0. And the scale, we're going to move that one way down. Why the mid-level so low? Yeah, so we're gonna have to add some extra displacement to this because it doesn't look... It's not bad. The shade smooth will help a bit. And we're going to add another subdivide. Not too much though. I don't want to crash your computer. Oh, we're using normal. No, you want to use the displace. Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, that's much better. Okay. Yep. Back to non-color. Okay. So it's going to give us an interesting uneven ground. I'm going to try to make this 0, I suppose. Run the scale down just a little bit. Like that. Okay, so I'm also going to add in a noise texture because I like noise textures. And we're going to push that into UV, of course. And if you know me, noise textures always require a ramp, color ramp. So move this into the factor, and then we're going to plug this into a mix. Mix RGB. What? Yeah, there we are. Mix RGB. So we're going to modify the displacement texture a little bit. This is going to be addition. And we're going to plug this in here. Yeah, and we're going to also add a math node. Not vector, math. Multiply. Okay, multiply, we're going to change that. Yeah, we're going to reduce that because we're trying to equalize these two a little bit. Yeah, okay, so now the scale needs to be... Ooh. Yeah. Really big. Actually, no. What we're going to do is we're going to make the scale rough like that, not too rough. And then we're going to take... We're going to go in... Oh, mid-level's a little high. Oh, no, it's a little low. We're going to move it down a little bit so it's closer to its original position. And we're going to go in here, press Tab for edit mode, Alt A, unselect everything, go up here to the top and select proportional editing. Select one of the vertices, press G, and change the influence area up or down. We're just going to go around and select a few of these. To change the environment a little bit, to give it a little bit of interest. Probably better if I did this in non-rendered mode. Here we are. Change that down a bit. Yeah, okay. It's a bit better. Okay, now we're going to add a normal map. A, search, normal. Color to color. Normal to normal. And this will be our bump map. And I don't know if we can... I think it did something. Never used this texture before. That's hard to tell. All right. So anyway, the normal goes to color. Because what this looks like is it looks like this. It's a normal map. So yeah. Change this. No. It's just a very yeah, we'll change the strength up a bit. There we go. Not too much. You start getting some artifacts. Yeah. And I think I'm going to change the displacement a little bit more. No, I'm going to change the value for the displacement map. I just don't want the polygons to show up too strongly. All right, so now we have our background. We have our rocks. They're sitting in a pretty decent environment. It's not super great. It'd be better if there was grass and rocks scattered across the surface, but for now this will be fine. I'm gonna pick a camera angle we like, or you like. I like this one with the rocks. Save it. I'm going to render it out. You can render it full size if you want. It's not a big deal. Change this a bit. So that's 0.8. I'll try that. Save. Now I'm going to render this. We're going to wait for this to render out, and then we're going to go into the compositor and change a few things. Yeah, you can see how the subdivision surface isn't quite high enough to get all of the detail that's being displaced here. It's high enough to give us a look at the rocks, though. I'm actually going to turn the sun texture down a little bit. Or the sun. It's a little bright. And I might turn down the... Yeah, I'm going to change this to about 5, I think. The lower the subsurface scattering is, the doesn't take up as much time, fewer calculations. So we're gonna render this out, and then we're gonna look at the compositor. And up here, you'll notice that you have a combined view and a depth pass. These are what are called passes, and they can be separated so that you can use them independently for different things inside of the compositor. All right, now that this is rendered, we have a nice big view of our rocks. I'm going to go back into Blender here. I'm going to save it, and we're going to go to the compositor. We're going to also change the primary view to something so it's not lagging our our Blender experience. So use nodes, check use nodes. You should have a node here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. And we're also going to click up here on backdrop. And we're going to add in an output, excuse me, viewer. Take the image output from your rendered layer and plug it into image viewer. Now press Alt Home. Hey, where's my home key? This will fit the preview to your screen. You can press Alt V and V to zoom. It's different than Blender, and there's a cross in the middle. Also Alt middle mouse button pans. So now that we're here, there's a few things that I might want to do. It depends on the scene that I'm doing. So the first thing is I might want to actually change the color grade for this scene. So I'm going to add in color. I think it's color correction. No, it can't be color correction. No, I'm going to add in. There's a bunch of things you can do in here. Yeah, color balance. So I'm going to plug this into the vector or the image, and I'm going to plug this into the viewer. Now, nothing's changed, but what we can do is now we can change the color in a very subtle way. So if I go down here and I select this for lift, I can change the color really subtly. So if I want it to be a bit more like maybe blue because it's on the coast, or overcast, I like a little bit of a yellowish color. It looks a bit more natural. So that's possible. I can change the values here. I can change the gamma. Well, I'm not going to, but... And the gain. I want a little more contrast. So a lot of these things you could do in a paint program or a Photoshop photo program itself, but you can also do them in Blender. So color, brightness, contrast. We can do this. We can change the brightness and the contrast just like you would in GIMP. Do that. But what I want to do, there's a few filters you can use in here. Set this back to 1. Yeah. So there's a few filters you can use in here. One of them is called, it's a glare, yeah. So we'll just pop this in between, and we'll take any one of these. You can change the threshold and just like, it's probably like a Facebook or iPhone filter or whatever. But what I want to use is ghosts, fog glow, excuse me. And I'm going to change the threshold. So I want to just give it a tiny bit of glare, not a lot. Gonna mix it a little bit. And this does make it darker, so I didn't change the darkness down. Change the threshold a little bit higher. This is more aesthetic than anything else, I think. I want to make it look like it's sort of in an arid desert kind of thing. Just ever so slightly. There. And if we go back to the render view, it doesn't seem like anything's changed. Well, that's because we have to actually plug it into Composite. So we'll take this output here and plug it into Composite. So it's plugged into both the viewer and the Composite. Composite is what you're looking at in here. So this has changed. View layer, combined. Oh, excuse me. I don't know where it went. View layer and composite. So it's a little glowy. So I can probably just back that off a little bit. And there's all kinds of things you can do in the composite, the compositor. Yeah, so after this, if you wanted to save your image, you could just go up here, image, and then save as, and save it as any kind of image format you'd like that Blender supports. There's all kinds of different things you could do with this. So that concludes our rock series. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm planning other series in the future. Subscribe so you don't miss those. I'm going to be covering some more modeling techniques in the next series. So I hope to see you there, and until then, keep blendering.